Dhyan is a beautiful thing. It makes you realize the inner structure of your psyche, and it lets you expand into the vast field of infinite consciousness. As you keep on expanding, you end up with the infinite existence. All the thoughts, ideas, beliefs have become so distant, you don't even know they exist. The samadhi state is a beautiful state. It's a state which is full of peace, silence, awareness, existence, and inner joy, and more. But these are the basic attributes of the samadhi state. And this state gives you the glimpse of consciousness, which is ever pervasive. It's everywhere. It's infinite. The fact that it is infinite, it cannot be stopped by anything. There are no limits. That's why Ishavasya Upanishad says, consciousness pervades, penetrates, filters everything moving and unmoving in this universe. So this almighty consciousness surrounds us, penetrates us, goes through every single thing that you can see, touch, smell, hear, taste, whatever. So such an expansive existence is very difficult to grasp, because that is our basic nature. That's what we are. We are included under the protection of universal consciousness that's within me as well as without. Every single thing that's around is residing within the belly of this vast consciousness. There is nothing separate from this consciousness because it's infinite. There cannot be anything separate. That's the Advaita state where the duality disappears. The differences between the objects, people, situations, etc. is nothing but a play within this vast field of infinite consciousness. And as this play is going within the belly of this vast consciousness, everything that we see around is nothing but consciousness. It is the dance of consciousness. Whether it's a matter or energy or a spirit, doesn't matter. Everything is consciousness. Just like a dancer is dancing. The universe that is visible is nothing but a dance of this vast consciousness. And the consciousness is the dancer itself. Just the way you cannot separate dance from the dancer. You cannot separate universe from the consciousness. How did it all happen? How did the world come about? Consciousness is ever pervasive and ever present. It always has been and it always will. So how did the universe get created? That the creation seems to us as a creation because something that did not exist before came into existence. As the science says, 13.5 billion years back, there was nothing. And a big bang took place and the universe was created. Creation appears as creation only because we cannot perceive the consciousness that was always present before so-called creation of the universe. Creation is something where there was nothing and something comes into existence. But that is only an illusion. In one form or the other, universe always existed. Just the way a tree exists in a seed as a potential. The same way universe always existed within this consciousness as a potential. Just the way egg exists within the chicken as a potential for the next chick to be born. And as the chick is born, the next chick exists within this chick as a potential. As the chick gets bigger and ultimately produces the egg and another chicken is born. So it's a link. For eons, this play has been going on. The vast consciousness may not have had to do anything, but the consciousness becomes aware of itself, because consciousness is nothing but awareness. But when one part of consciousness becomes aware of another part of consciousness, that's when the desire to see itself arises. And with the desire, the evolution takes place. The senses develop. The eyes, the ears, the touch, the smell, taste, everything develops. These are the results of our desires. Our arms, our legs, our eyes, everything that we have so far has been always the end result of innermost desires. Just the way the fish, when got trapped in the shallow waters, had an innate desire to be able to walk on the land because it was attacked by the sharks and trapped in the shallow waters. It started developing rudimentary foot structure with bones located within its fins and started crawling out of the ocean. And that gave rise to all the animals on the land. So consciousness had an inner desire to see itself. So transformations take place within the consciousness, just the way a dream is created within us, but it is not separate from us. Universe has come into existence so that one part of the consciousness can perceive the other part of consciousness. These interactions is what we call samsara. We are the same consciousness as the plants, the mountains, the rivers, the suns and galaxies. Everything is part of that consciousness. When we hug a friend, he is also consciousness, and so are you. So interactions that take place is nothing but samsara. Samsara expands and goes within your mind also. So walking away from samsara does not do any good. You have to understand that these relationships of yours with others is all contained within this consciousness. They are not real relationships. When this awareness happens, then the transcendental experience happens, or vice versa. Samadhi state happens that sheds the light on these interactions and make you realize that it was an illusion. But meanwhile, the samsara goes on with its limited mind that has been given to them. At that level, only relationship known at the senses level exist and are perceivable without realizing the vast universe, vast consciousness behind the universe. It cannot be perceived. And with the limited capacity of the mind, we keep on living and die. And in this perpetual cycle, we lose ourselves, never realizing the vast consciousness that people call God even exists. The word God is very misleading. It gives you an imaginary idea of a creator or some supreme being present away from us, which is very false and very misleading. So, existence, consciousness, inner peace, inner joy, that is a better description, and it can be only experienced, never seen, never touched, never smelled. So go within, find out the kingdom of consciousness, which is everywhere, bigger than anything else that you and I know. The folding of consciousness took place just the way a handkerchief gets folded onto itself to create a knot. The only difference is handkerchief is a simple structure, two-dimensional. Folding a handkerchief looks very simple, but the consciousness is a multidimensional structure. It's an existence which is vast, beyond our comprehension, beyond the mind. And when that folds upon itself, the interactions happen. All the samsara is based on interactions. One person dealing with another person, object or situation. All our thoughts, all our ideas, all our beliefs are based on duality. Duality is you and someone else. And that is an illusion. Just the way we create two figures in our mind when we go to bed, and these figures fight with each other, never realizing they both are created by our mind. Our mind is a miniature consciousness that creates figures within our mind, and these figures fight, hug, interact with each other, but totally oblivious of the mind that created it. Same way, we keep on interacting with each other, never realizing the bigger picture. So Buddha, one meeting with his students, brought a handkerchief. He folded it into several knots, and he asked his students, has the nature of the handkerchief changed since I put the knots on it? Nobody could say that it is different, because it is the same handkerchief. The basic nature of handkerchief has not changed, and yet the knots have appeared on it, so it has changed. Knots. So he asked, did the knots come from outside? So everybody said no, because they are all within this handkerchief. One part of the handkerchief folded onto another part of the handkerchief, and the knots were created. So knots did not come from outside. So Buddha said, let me try to get the knots out. So he started stretching the handkerchief. So student says, no, that's not the way we can remove the knots. Outside help will not remove the knots. Then how do you remove the knots? You have to know exactly how you tied the knots. And you can untie it also in the same fashion that you created these knots. So we are human beings with knots at our mind level, our anxiety, our grief, our stress, our hatred, our jealousy, our so-called love. All these are folding of one part of consciousness with another part of consciousness that we are. We interact with the world and create these knots. So we become a handkerchief with knots. Now, if you look at a handkerchief with the knots in its visible form, yes, the handkerchief has changed. But if you look at it an intrinsic way, where every single part of the knot even is nothing but the handkerchief, then you will be able to understand what I'm saying, that every human being with all its connections interactions, and the byproduct of these interactions, acquiring, holding, greed, all these are the knots tied in our head. And that is us. So visibly, all humans look different than God. All humans are nothing but knots in physical forms. We are the product of our desires, and desires continue at the mind level with the knots. If these knots are tied at the mind level, they can be opened up only at the mind level by sitting quietly, realizing the universal consciousness, and find out where we made the mistakes, thinking that we are separate than God or separate than consciousness. The consciousness is what we are, but we have forgotten our true nature, and we have paid too much attention in the interactions with each other components of this consciousness. And these components are all the people, the objects and situations around us. We interact and we forget our true spiritual existence. Just like looking at bangles, somebody maybe fall in love with the appearance of the bangles and may select one over the other, never realizing that it is the gold that is within is the same, whether you pay $50 or $5,000 based on the appearance. The inner nature of the bangle, the gold, stays the same. So same way, at the duality level, we give importance to different things. We give importance to things we like. We walk away from the things we dislike. Then all that means is we are looking at bangles at their face value, and we don't know their intrinsic nature. It's all gold. Same way, the world that we run away from or we run towards, everything is consciousness. We are silly. We are like one hand is fighting with another hand. And these fights have been going on, never realizing that we are loser in this fight, whether the right hand wins or the left hand wins. There is winning and losing, all these are illusory. In duality, peace cannot exist, because duality itself is illusion, it's an ignorance. In that, we will never get peace. The only peace that's possible is in non-duality, the Advaita state. So let's all strive for that. Have a good day.